Don in London, hello. My video for March 15th, all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour could be equally addictive around people, places and things. And now I don't obsess or self-obsess. I don't need to drink alcohol anymore. That's it. I just don't need to do it. And what helped me? Obviously, for me, family, friends, community, professionals, medical people kept me alive when I was on the edge of expiring. And a fellowship, and that fellowship is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And I share a lot about AA. I never speak for the fellowship. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak where they will for themselves. And that's just as it may be. We have a 12-step program, as it's sometimes called, or 12 steps of living, as I like to call it. Living in the moment now in a 24-hour a day, well, 24-hour program. And what does this program do for me? Well, it lets me let life happen and be a part of life rather than thinking I'm in control of it. So the fellowship has taught me this, and living the steps of AA has helped me find life absolutely worthwhile, even when it's hard work, when it's devastatingly horrible, when grief comes, and also when it's just simply plain happy. And that's not bad. So living in the solution rather than going back into the problem. So the fellowship of AA helps me because what I see is what I get when I go to meetings. It's attraction rather than promotion. And this is not a promotion video. It's simply sharing a message of hope for those who have thoughts about stopping drinking, a desire to stop, and for many who cannot get to meetings for whatever reason, and for those who may not be able to read some of the literature I share so well. I have dyslexia. It makes me stumble on words, it makes me falter when I speak the words, so I try my best, and sometimes it's okay, and sometimes I have to repeat myself to make sense of anything I'm saying, and that's because I'm human. I'm just getting on with life as it is. So what is AA? I'm going to share what it is from the AA preamble, which I hear at every meeting, and then share from this book, Daily Reflections, and one or two thoughts and feelings for today. So, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. That's it. The only requirement is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So in that simple statement, it is a desire to stop drinking. It doesn't cost you anything except time to go find out what it's like to be sober. And when we go to meetings, we see the happy and sad of life as people share their experience, strength and hope. So always attraction, never promotion. And promotion suggests there is a solution which can be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to fix you. And in this world I've recognised and now realise there are no quick fixes to a problem like being an alcoholic or even in recovery. It takes time. We cannot fix ourselves in quick time, but we can stop drinking and then learn how to live a really good life. But bad things happen to good people, so one of the things to take account of, it's not all going to be magic, although it can feel magic from time to time, and it can be a miracle to stop drinking when everything else has failed. I used to think of AA as the last chance saloon, but indeed it's not the last chance saloon, it's a place of opportunity to live again. So I feel very, very grateful for every single person I meet, whether we get on or we don't get on, because it's like life. Some people we like, some people we won't really like at all, because they just have a different outlook to their way of life. But the fellowship is simply there for one reason, a desire to be sober today. So from the Daily Reflections, this book, it shares in March about step 3, which is exactly the words of this step. Step 3, March for me, here we are. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. And that was a very big stumbling block for me, because I was brought up atheist, agnostic, rebellious, and taught to stand on my own 2 feet, when I maybe would have been better listening more to what the people said around me, rather than being the solution provider as I thought I ought to be. So I excluded solutions because I always thought I had a better one, and often I did. But I did learn from my mistakes. But one of the mistakes I made was to be able to do things to extraordinarily difficult degrees by putting alcohol in my system so I could switch myself off. And these days I don't have to. Life is extraordinarily difficult often anyway, especially in these difficult economic times. So the March 15 reading is the God idea. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did work. And the way it worked for me, for God to come into my life, was that God works through people, and every person I encounter has wisdom, and if I listen to it, I have a better outlook. My outlook is broader than the one I had before, which was just my outlook. And it goes on to say, like a blind man gradually being restored to sight, I have slowly groped my way to the 3rd step, having realized that only a power greater than myself could rescue me from the hopeless abyss I was in. I knew that this was a power that I had to grasp, and that it would be my anchor in the midst of a sea of woes. Even though my faith at that time, was minuscule, it was big enough to make me see that it was for me to discard my reliance upon my prideful ego and replace it with the steadying strength that could only come from a power far greater than myself. And that took a long time to sink in, that I wasn't being asked to join a religious sect, but to develop an understanding of a power greater than me, a higher power. And for me, it's the inner voice we have, and in the old days it was always about my decline into the problem. And I made so many problems in my own personal life that I was a very good solution provider in other people's lives, because I knew what they were going through. Not helpful to me, because I used alcohol to stir it all up, or simply get oblivion from the desperate stress that I put myself under. And I thought I had to be perfect. I thought I had to demonstrate to you my worthiness, normally by career, work, and in relationships too. Impossible for me to achieve whatever I thought it was you wanted me to be. So these days I'm trying to be me, and I learn more about me by the end of the day. And I was sharing earlier about forgiveness, and one of the things I know deep down inside, if I cannot forgive other people, there are parts of me which I'm not forgiving of either, because we all have, I suppose, our assets and liabilities in character traits, and some of mine have always been, when I'm right, I'm right, and when I see another person going down a road which is hurting other people, I can join in and say you're wrong what you're doing, and indeed maybe that is not the way. Sometimes I just need to forgive people for the way they are, because they are doing the best they can, and no matter what I might say, it wouldn't make any difference. And I can be doing the best I can do, and it can feel like the worst encounter for another person. We're just like that. Some people like us, some people won't like us. It's just the way it is. So we can't please all the people all the time. So I was writing this morning, forgiveness is like faith. Well, this is not, this is a quote. Forgiveness is like faith. You have to keep reviving it. And that was Mason Cooley, a professor. Step 3, let go and let God, and good conscience. The best I can be, the best I may be, can be the worst encounter for another. Forgiving ourselves for the impact on others and making amends if we can, means we can forgive those whose best hurts us no matter why or the intention. In other words, and always forgive. Forgive always. Otherwise, we are carrying a resentment which is going to start to take up our energy and make us feel sad, angry, resentful. So, resentments, well, I can't live with them. They really fester if I don't do something about it. And what I do is go to a meeting and express my feelings about what's happened and say, you know, in the reality of my life, what has happened is just one incident. And if it can be less than a minute, but it can be all encompassing and consuming for days on end if I don't do something about it. So forgiving a person who is doing their best in the moment might not seem like it to me, might feel really horrible. That's the best they can do, and let go, whatever happens. And somebody wrote a comment back to me. To forgive is such a blessing. I think it gets easier as we recognise our own limitations and begin to trust that everyone is on a spiritual journey. At a recent conference I heard that to judge means I seek leverage, and I guess it does. It's like trying to influence somebody to a different point of view. I believe there's an element of judgment whenever I balk at forgiving someone. Still, we've the right to observe actions and determine what works for us and doesn't. In short, we become more human and allow those around us to be more human, and diminish our need to forgive by surrounding ourselves with like-minded people who are less likely to harm. So we find the people we fit with and the people we don't fit with, we don't have to try and change. It's their outlook, it's their life, and moving along. So March, halfway through, nearly, all about let go and let God. Letting go and letting good happen, letting my conscience work. And step 3 for me is also allied to all the other steps. You can't do one without the others. So when people get on my nerves for whatever reason, or make me angry and resentful, I get hold of step 10 straight away, which is dealing with the disturbances on a daily basis. What is disturbing me about this person? And if I've fought back in a, I suppose, leverage way or a self-seeking way to try and change their minds to my point of view, I better not do it. Simply let go and let them be who they are. I'm not here to change other people. I'm only here to change my attitudes and behaviour, so my life works. Free choices continue to happen, and I end up with like-minded people, and I enjoy their company. And 1 or 2 days over the last month or so, I've been able to get out and socialise and be with people after meetings of fellowship. And it's like, we call it the meeting after the meeting, and it could be a cup of coffee, or it could be a biscuit, or it could be dinner. It just depends on how much money I have available at the time. So all these things can happen. And what do? We are looking after each other as best we can, either by being associated or not. We don't have to change anyone. They will change as life changes them, if they choose. A better way to live, more serenity on a daily basis. Serenity doesn't mean it's all going to be happy. Serenity means I accept and understand the situation as it is. So the serenity prayer, which always helps me in any situation, to God of good conscience. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is always just for today. Recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive to work, relationships, materialism, collecting it. I collected everything, and I've just had a weekend of looking in my cupboards to see what is useful, and an awful lot of things needed to go. And a friend of mine was doing a car boot sale, or I think you call it, sometimes it's called a garage sale as well. So many items have disappeared which have ceased to be useful to me, but might be useful to other people. So materialism, I'm getting back into balance, and the same applies for being sober, one day at a time. One day at a time I keep sober, making choices to the good of living. So I don't drink on a daily basis, I try not to obsess about people, places and things, and just take life as it comes, which is quite different from the 35-year drinking career, which was probably based mainly on fear of being less than good enough, so always striving to be perfect and never so, fear of being found out as being inadequate in some way or other, and striving always to be whatever I thought you thought I ought to be, because I had no clue and no real identity. Somehow I'd skipped that part of my personal development. So very fearful as a kid, never knowing where safe was, never knowing that the gap inside me, that emptiness, was there for a good reason, to be filled with things which would help me and be good for me. So a lot of time trying to cover up, not feeling quite right about life. So these days I feel much happier living one day at a time, and not trying to control it, letting go of the obsession of trying to be perfect and be right with other people, and being right generally. So all I know these days is what is working for me, and very often the trap is I start to judge others and their behaviour when I only need to look at my own behaviour and what is good, to the good of good conscience. So a lot about letting go this month in March, and understanding that if I let go my self-will, my obsessiveness about trying to be perfect, I can find that elusive balance in life. So what helps me? Well, I can't do it on my own, I've discovered. I tried for many a day, or many a week, many a month, many a year, to try and solve my problems on my own. And that's excluding behaviour. It meant that I was trying to do it on my own, excluding the advice, wisdom of other people, and their love to a large extent, because if I let them down, what on earth would I do? So a man on the run often, but not these days. I slow down, and when confronted with interesting situations in the past few years, it's been more about exploring the possibilities and the choices, not only for myself but for the people around me. So more including, more inclusive behaviour, to be included, to understand that I can have choices, and that love comes along as it will, and love can be fraternal, brotherly, sisterly, or romantically, and all of those things have happened. And the gift is the girl who said, "I'm interested in you," has become one of my best friends. We're not going out romantically anymore, but she is actually one of my best friends, and that is a marvel. And of course these relationships change as life changes, so I'm very aware that I'm still vulnerable to feeling the loss, more so when she eventually finds somebody else. Anyway, that's a bridge not yet found. What keeps me sober? A fellowship, family, community, professionals. But the fellowship part is really what I share here, and that's Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't speak for it, never can, never will, never have a desire to. And I'm not a spokesperson generally about anything but my own sobriety. But I do share about AA because it helps me, and it is the backbone of my recovery, and it makes life possible. Keeps me in balance, keeps me with people who can be as mad as me on a daily basis, finding sobriety and serenity. So what is AA? AA, there is a statement of intent or a preamble shared at every meeting I go to. I have a choice of 700 meetings in London, so I can't go to them all. It would take 3 years. No, 2 years. But the gift is, they're there. So AA, what is it? And this is the AA preamble, and it reads like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. So whilst I don't speak for it, I understand completely that it is about sobriety, and the primary purpose is to share a message and be sober. So that's what I'm trying to do. And I do it because it helps me, reminds me on a daily basis what is good for me. And I share from this book the daily reflections. And in this book it covers the 12 steps of AA, 12 steps of action for an individual to find how to change our attitude and behaviour on a daily basis. So when we're up against it, we can go to our negative side very quickly. But the 12 steps help us understand how to make good choices, to keep our attitude positive and keep our behaviour in balance rather than going to those extremes. And March in this book all about step 3, which is letting go and letting good in, or let go, let God, depending on your personal beliefs. And it reads today for March 15, the God idea. And the God idea for me was out of the question when I was drinking. And my teaching, if you like, and my learning had been to reject the idea of some sort of spiritual life, be it religious or non-religious, just spiritual, which is, for me, living in the moment of now. And for me, God is truth, God is love, God works through people. And beyond that, I don't know. I don't need to. But if I can let the world in, the universe in, then I've got a fighting chance, not a fighting, a living chance to make good choices. So it reads like this, the God idea. When we saw others solve their problems by simple reliance on the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God, truth, love, working through people. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. Like a blind man gradually being restored to sight, I slowly broke my way to the 3rd step. Having realized that only a power greater than myself could rescue me from the hopeless abyss I was in, I knew that this was a power that I had to grasp, or just understand, and that it would be my anchor in the midst of a sea of woes. Even though my faith at the time was minuscule, it was big enough to make me see that it was time for me to discard my reliance on prideful ego and replace it with the steadying strength that could only come from a power far greater than myself. And for me, that is the wisdom of the universe, the wisdom of people, and what is going on around me. So when I first got to AA, God, that word God, was all over the place, and it discouraged me and made me fearful because it meant giving up my self-will. But what I didn't realise was my self-will had run riot, self-obsessive and prideful ego. And these days, one day at a time, hopefully it's less so. So I try let the universe in and let people in to help me with their wisdom, their experience, strength and hope. What more? Love, of course. And that serenity prayer, which I share at the end of my videos, is to good conscience or God as you understand. It's your understanding which is so important. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is for me simply, very simply, just for today.
Recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, any old holic you can think of, alcoholic, workaholic, relationship-aholic, all the isms, and addicted to life, I guess. Sometimes I wasn't addicted to life. I was addicted to the idea I might not wake up for many years, when I was feeling very sorry for myself and depressed. And it wasn't easy, because depression is something we see as a weakness, not a condition. And depression is what it is. So the gift for me is I have had proper diagnosis, proper help, professional help to make me understand, help me understand where I am today. So what keeps me in recovery? Professional help, family, community, society, civilization, what I learn every day, just a little bit more, makes it worthwhile. And even in difficult times like now, where this last week has been extraordinarily hard on me, emotionally, spiritually and physically, I keep on going. And the fellowship which helps me is Alcoholics Anonymous. And for anybody looking for some fellowship, there are plenty about who offer help with different substances and different behaviours. But I have to say, what works for me is AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and I share the preamble here because it slows me into the moment of now. That's my spiritual connection to living, trying to have less denials and less filters in my way, and just try and live life truthfully, open, honest and willing. So the preamble goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I got to 2 meetings yesterday of the fellowship, and I need them at the moment because life is difficult. I know if I isolate at the moment, my mood goes down, and I need to keep in good company, people sober, either one day sober or many years sober. We're all the same size, same outcome, sober today, living in fellowship and making life work as we can, just for today. And thank you too for the support from people sending emails and messages, and it helps, it does help. And also criticism helps too, and 1 or 2 critical remarks about traditions that keep the fellowship safe. So we have steps, 12 steps of action, suggested steps to keep us safe and sober, and there are 12 traditions which are there to help the fellowship keep safe and a sanctuary for people to find their truth of now. And 2 or 3 traditions, the first 2 or 3s. First it said our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on AA unity. And also included in that is no AA can tell another AA what to do. Everything's done through a group conscience, which is tradition 2. For our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself in our group conscience. And the idea of God for me is simply God is truth, God is love, and God works through people, very nuts and bolts. But that's just me, and everybody has their own view on what that is. But the most important thing is group conscience is the way that a group of people make their fellowship work for them. And as long as they're within the principles of the AA fellowship, then they are part of AA. And the third one here, the only requirement for AA membership, a desire to stop drinking, is crucial, because you can say you're part of the fellowship if you have a desire to stop drinking, and that's the only one qualifying I suppose, endorsement that one can give oneself. It's not imposed by others. It's what we know and understand ourselves to be. So those 3 traditions are very, very important, because we all have different opinions, and it's quite right that we do. Different opinions, but the principles are very, very similar in their outcome. That is, we're not here to judge others. We're not here to impose our will in any particular way on another person. We have a fellowship which runs on group understanding. That is a common understanding that people have to come to, not as a voting democracy as such, but coming up with the right understanding of how to make the fellowship work for them. And that's important to me, because I couldn't join a fellowship which dictated to me how I live my life. In fact, it's all suggestions which I can take or leave, and that applies to everybody else as well. So it's important for me to say that you need not follow my suggestions, but you can listen to what has worked for me, or not, as the case may be, and that's most important. We still need our freedom of choices. That is the gift of fellowship. Freedom of choices, bearing in mind we're no bigger or smaller than anybody else, and if we rub along in life with other people, we need to take account of their outlook, their choices, and that we are powerless over people, places and things, most likely, most often, if not completely. We get our choices back in fellowship. That's the most important thing. And with a fellowship we've got more power, if you like, to hear, experience, strength and hope as we go along. So the fellowship of AA has been critical to my development, if you like, of being able to live in the day. And that is my spiritual connection to the truth of now. And I utilise daily reflections. It covers one step a month. Not many people know this because they don't use it as a complete reference all the time. But third month, third step, is all about letting go and letting God, or letting go and letting good conscience. It's how we are, and this is very apt. March 15th, the God idea. When we saw others solve their problems by a simple reliance upon the spirit of the universe, we had to stop doubting the power of God. Our ideas did not work, but the God idea did. Like a blind man gradually being restored to sight, I slowly groped my way to the third step, having realized that only a power greater than myself could rescue me from the hopeless abyss I was in. I knew that this was a power that I had to grasp, and that it would be my anchor in the midst of a sea of woes. Even though my faith at the time was minuscule, it was big enough to make me see that it was time for me to discard my reliance on my prideful ego and replace it with the steadying strength that could only come from a power far greater than myself. And, you know, whatever the God idea is for you, it's not for me to challenge it. And, you know, it's absolutely important that a person has an understanding of their own higher power. And although mine, you know, is a power greater than me, other people's ideas, their outlook, their experience, strength and hope, their wisdom, it's all there for me to dig into and be part of, and then I learn my own wisdom and how my life can work on a daily basis. That's the real gift, is to make our choices in connection with the rest of humanity. And the rest of humanity, that is a higher power, greater power than me, and the universal power. I don't know if I'm an atheist, agnostic, or God believer, but you know, the preface behind that, the God idea. God is truth, God is love, and God works through people. That's fine. Keeps me on the sober path, and I wouldn't want to undermine anybody else's idea. Coming on to As Bill Sees It, another one which I use every day if I can. I read it, but I don't often use it here. It says, "Live serenely," page 48. When a drunk has a terrific hangover because he drank heavily yesterday, he cannot live well today. But there is another kind of hangover which we all experience whether we are drinking or not. That is the emotional hangover, the direct result of yesterday's and sometimes today's excesses of negative emotion, anger, fear, jealousy and the like. If we would live serenely today and tomorrow, we certainly need to eliminate these hangovers. This doesn't mean we need to wander morbidly around in the past. It requires an admission and correction of errors now. And for me, you know, the errors now in all of that, they are there. If you I don't know. See, the premise is there that if we live in the past, we will keep on repeating and creating it. But if we can get to the present day when we can make life work, and for me today life feels a little bit better than yesterday, when I was at sea, my memory was all over the place, amnesia. And that's to do with changes in my regime, so I need to be careful. But if I say to myself, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, I know I have a bit of a better chance just for today.